You ever wonder why it's just so hard to make a good habit stick? Or, to finally kick a bad one for good? You start out with all this energy, all this motivation, but a few weeks later, poof, you're right back where you started. Well, what if the problem isn't you? What if it's your approach? Okay, let's dive into this and unpack the core ideas from James Clear's incredible book, Atomic Habits.
So the entire book is built on this really simple but kind of mind-blowing piece of math. If you get just 1% better at something each day for a whole year, you won't be 365% better. Nope. Because of the power of compounding, you'll actually be a whopping 37 times better. But, and this is a big but, it works the other way too. Get 1% worse each day, and you basically slide all the way down to 0. It just goes to show how these tiny, tiny changes can build up into something truly incredible.
And this quote right here, it absolutely nails the core idea. We tend to think that success demands some huge, heroic effort, right? A once-in-a-lifetime transformation. But what this book argues so brilliantly is that real, lasting change comes from the small, almost invisible choices we make day in and day out. It's all about the daily process, not the grand, dramatic gesture.
Okay, so if the path is just making small improvements every day, why is it so hard? Why do we fail so often? You know that feeling, like all your hard work is for nothing? Well, it turns out that feeling is actually pretty misleading.
The book explains this with a fantastic metaphor. Just imagine an ice cube sitting in a room that's a chilly 25 degrees. Now, the room starts to slowly heat up, 26, 27, all the way to 31 degrees. You've been putting in all this work, right? All this heat. But from the outside, it looks like absolutely nothing is happening. The ice cube is still just an ice cube.
But see, that work wasn't wasted. It was just being stored. Because the real magic happens at 32 degrees. That's when the breakthrough happens. This whole period of no visible change is what the book calls the plateau of latent potential. It's that super frustrating valley of disappointment where most of us give up, usually right before we're about to see the results.
All right, so how do we actually push through that plateau? Well, this requires a pretty major shift in how we think. We need to stop being so obsessed with our goals and start focusing on our systems instead.
So what's the difference? Well, goals are about the results you want to achieve. A system is the process that gets you to those results. Think about it this way. A coach's goal might be to win the championship. That's the result. But their system is what they do every day, how they recruit players, how they run practice, how they analyze game film. Here's the thing. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. It's the system that makes all the difference. And focusing only on goals can really set you up for failure. First off, hitting a goal is just a momentary change. Sure, you can clean your messy room. That's the goal. But if you still have sloppy, messy habits, your system, it's just going to get messy again. You're treating a symptom, not the cause. And another thing, goals kind of put your happiness on hold. You tell yourself, once I reach my goal, then I'll finally be happy. A systems first mindset, though, lets you fall in love with the process itself.
Okay, so let's shift from the why to the how. To build better systems, we first have to understand the basic mechanics of how a habit even forms in our brains. And it turns out, it's a really simple loop that's running all the time.
Every single habit you have, good, bad, whatever, it follows this exact 4-step pattern. First, there's a cue, which is the trigger that tells your brain, hey, do this thing. Then comes the craving. That's the motivation, the desire. Third is the response, which is the actual habit you perform. And finally, you get the reward, which satisfies that craving and tells your brain, hey, this loop was good. Let's remember it for next time.
And get this. This isn't something that happens once in a while. This feedback loop, cue, craving, response, reward, is running every single moment that you're awake. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment, trying to predict what to do next, and learning from the results. If you can understand this loop, you can take control.
Okay, so if that's the loop, how do we actually engineer it to work for us? This is where the book gives us this absolutely brilliant, super practical framework. It boils down to 4 simple laws that we can use to build good habits and, yes, break bad ones. And each law perfectly targets one step of that habit loop we just talked about. This table right here, this is the heart of the book. It's the playbook. To build a good habit, you make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. And to break a bad habit, you just flip it. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. It's such a simple but incredibly powerful way to think about changing your behavior. So, Law 1 targets the cue. To build a good habit, you have to make the cues for it completely unavoidable.
If you want to practice guitar more often, don't hide it away in a case in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. You're making the cue so obvious you can't possibly miss it.
Next up, Law 2, which targets the craving. We're just way more likely to do something if we actually find it appealing. A great technique for this is something called temptation bundling. This is where you pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. The book tells this awesome story of a student who literally hacked his exercise bike to only play Netflix if he was pedaling above a certain speed. He bundled the temptation of TV with the habit of exercising. Brilliant, right?
Law 3, make it easy, is a game changer. It targets the response. Look, we are all wired to follow the path of least effort. So when you're starting a new habit, you have to make it ridiculously easy. The book calls this the 2-minute rule. Your new habit has to take less than 2 minutes, so read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do yoga for 30 minutes becomes take out my yoga mat. The point isn't to do everything at once, it's to master the art of just showing up.
And finally, we have Law 4, which targets the reward. What is immediately rewarded gets repeated. The problem is, for a lot of good habits, the reward is way off in the future. So we have to find a way to make it feel good right now. A couple in the book wanted to save money. So every single time they skipped eating out and cooked at home instead, they immediately transferred $50 into a savings account they labeled Trip to Europe. It made the good choice instantly satisfying. But here it is, the deepest, most profound insight of the entire book. These 4 laws, they're the tools. But the ultimate goal of building better habits isn't just about getting better results, like losing weight or writing a book. It's about fundamentally changing who you are. Think about it like this. Change happens on 3 layers. The outside layer is your outcomes. That's what you get. The middle layer is your process. That's what you do. But the deepest layer, the core, is your identity. That's what you believe about yourself. Real, lasting change has to work from the inside out. The goal isn't just to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. See the difference?
And this quote just puts it so perfectly. Your habits are how you literally embody a particular identity. Every time you go to the gym, even when you don't feel like it, you are casting a vote for being a healthy person. Every time you write 1 page, you're casting a vote for being a writer. These small actions provide evidence, proof to yourself that you're becoming the person you want to be.
So in the end, the tiny habits you repeat day after day, they don't just add up to get you results, they reinforce your very identity. Which leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. Every action you take is a vote. So who are you voting to become?